Now, she would never ride astride. She always rode side saddle. This is one of the side saddles. She would sit here, and her right knee would come around this way, and there's one stirrup, one foot. Now think about that. 1900, think about that. 1900, to see a woman's ankle was an event. This is called a riding habit. Let me get it. Oh, here we go. Now, notice this fabric will hang off the left side.
Is that her actual?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll hold it while you
All right.
do the costume.
When she rode, notice the fabric here. It came down and covered that ankle that everybody was looking for. Now, how do you walk with that much fabric if you get off of a horse? I'm sorry, I have this backwards. This is the way it was when she was on the horse, all that fabric, covering that ankle. Then when she got off the horse, this was pulled back up. And it made it where you could walk in it. They had race horses. This is one of the jockey silks. And I can remember this, and they had some brown silks too, but now my grandparents had all this stuff, boxes of stuff. They just gave it away. I had some stuff. Nancy and I lived in Atlanta for 40 years. And then when we moved back, I brought some of that stuff with us. And the family that had received this stuff no longer had any interest in it. And I didn't want to see it all just trashed. So I gathered up all that I could, and we contacted the Buffalo Bill Wild West Museum in Cody, Wyoming, and told them we had this stuff. And would they like to have it? And they said, yeah. Oh, yeah. They were excited about it. So we walked in the front door, walked back into the archive section. They said, well, and we talked a little bit. I said, you want to bring it? You want to bring it through the main lobby? I said, no, we've got a truck in the back. So we went back, and they brought out a little push truck. But there was boxes of pictures from the Buffalo Bill Wild West show. And they were so excited about that because she had written names of the cowboys. So they had diaries of cowboys, and they couldn't identify pictures of them. So they were terribly excited. All these years in the family, once in a while you'd look at that stuff and just throw it back in the box. When they looked at it, they put on rubber gloves. But they were terribly excited about getting that. Now, this material kept popping back. People out in the family, stuff. Oh, we don't want that. Fred will take it. Well, Fred did take it. What's Fred going to do with it? I asked my daughter. She said, send it up here. She lived in New Jersey at the time. No, I guess she lived in Virginia at the time. And she contacted the Smithsonian. Now, Mrs. Hunter had a box of ribbons, blue ribbon awards. And some of them were just deteriorating, coming apart. You couldn't do anything with them. Some of them were pretty nice. I made a big board, exhibit them, and just covered the board with all of those ribbons. We took the ribbons, her spurs. Interesting. Both spurs were here, but she only used one when she rode. And her foot was so small. It was a small spur, but they had laced in a piece of leather to make it smaller to fit her little foot. But they had the other one that had never been used. They took a couple of riding habits, the spurs, several ribbons, and what else, honey? Yeah, another riding habit. Riding habit. But when, I think it was 1969, I was back here. My granddad had a great sense of humor. In 1969, I was back here, and I said, Granddad, why haven't you become a citizen? He said, well, I'm not too sure I'm going to stay. But in fact, he wanted to get his citizenship, but nobody had offered to help him. So he and I went to Kansas City, went to the Department of Immigration. We got an inspector, sat down, and this fellow says, how did you come into the United States? Granddad said, in a possum belly. And this guy's, what? So I had to stop the conversation and explain all of that. But then we had to verify his residence in the United States, but in Smithville from 1911 up to the present. They had never owned a house, never owned any property. There was no records. But we had to have some record of his residence here. I went to the high school and found where he had signed up my mother for the first grade and signed it. That was 1921. But prior to that, they said the Department of Immigration was so fouled up, they couldn't do anything with it. If we could prove his residence prior to 1923, that was it. He's good. He's in. So that little signing up my mother for first grade got him in. So he's very proud of his citizenship. Is there anything else, Nancy? What? Well, I was coming to that. Yeah. My grandmother gave me this pennant. She just gave it to me. And I said, what year was that? She said, well, I think it was 1914. She said, I think it was 1914. And I wrote 1914 in pencil right there. And then this is just some others. Now, we lived in Atlanta for 40 years in a very compact, small neighborhood. We had a swimming pool, had book clubs, and had tennis courts. We got the tennis courts, and we needed benches. I remember behind my grandparents' shed, if you can visualize just the iron of that, with 3 of the feet rusted away. But I thought it had the potential to be a pretty cute little bench. So I took the iron to Atlanta, and I got the appropriate size channel iron, welded on, and made the feet. Now, I repaired the original, and then I made 5 more, generally for the tennis courts. But this is one that I made for Nancy. It's from scratch. I made that whole thing. I'd made them. They were there in the house, in the basement. My grandparents went down. My grandmother said, Bill, do you remember how those benches were scattered all under those oak trees behind behind the grandstand, So those benches were out under the oak trees under. Now, is there anything else, Nancy, that I need to talk about? All right, I'll go with that.
Oh, there's the badge for the Eastern Star thing right there.
Oh,
I mean, we're done. We got it.
What are you talking about?
Thank you.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
You weren't here with it.
What?
You weren't here earlier when we were talking about the Eastern Stars.
I couldn't hear either.
Yeah.
All right. In 2017, actually it was 2016, Nancy and I nominated Mr. and Mrs. Hunter for the Cowboy Cowgirl Hall of Fame in Kansas. And that's in Dodge City. And they were accepted in 2017. And that's what this is. This is stuff about the Cowboy Cowgirl Hall of Fame in Kansas. You go to Dodge City, the original front street is here, and that the original stores is at evolved. And then they got a tourist front street over here, and it's stuff, you know, just no, it's down there, just down the street from the depot, just down the street. But in that is a section for famous cowboys, cowgirls for Kansas. But we went to the induction, and I was speaking, and I missed something, and I started to go back, and Nancy thought I was starting to repeat myself, and I'd lost myself, so she started giving me this. I didn't know what was happening, so I shut up. But we were there. Now there were probably 200 people there anyway, and these were ranchers generally from Kansas. And we were over here in a conversation. Two guys were talking, and one of them's talking about going back east, eastern Kansas. Yeah. Yeah. I want to do a little something off topic right now. I thought I was going to